when you step
Take
out, take the step. When you feel that nudge from the Lord, I have found in my life that if you'll just step out and go do it, that he's going to meet you there. Now listen, let's just be honest. That's not easy to do. There's things that are going to happen that aren't going to go the way you thought they were going to go. Mm-hmm. But if you'll just do it, the great adventure isn't going to places and rafting down a river. The great adventure is stepping into the will of God.
Well, welcome everyone to season 2 of Edge of the Map podcast. I'm here with special guest Larry Montgomery. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you.
We are diving into some places in the world that no one visits. And there are still places like that. No roads, no signals, no easy way in, and no easy way out. And for most of us, those places stay just out there, unseen, unreached, unvisited. But not for everyone. Larry here has spent years leading teams and trips into hard-reached communities, villages that are remote, communities that are off the grid, that don't really have roads into them or ways out. The kind of trips that, and we've talked about this, the kind of trips that don't go according to plan.
Yeah.
But somehow they're the trips that get talked about the most and have the most impact. And that's what we want to talk about today. We're going to talk about why we go to these places, how it actually happens, the logistics behind it, everything from, booking airfare to actually partnering with locals on the ground. And we're going to talk about what happens when someone steps into a place like this that no one really goes to. What happens to that person? How does God change them? And along the way, we're going to hear some stories that I think are going to stick with us. So thank you for being on the show today, Larry. I wondered if you, just right off the bat here, if you could pull us into a village that you've been to that was off the grid and that sort of represents a significant place in your mind, where either God did something miraculous or special with you and the team, or with the person that was there. And what was it like to enter that village? What was it like to be there?
Well, it's a great question. I think a hard question for me. There's so many over the years that I have so many stories about. There's so many that I just have a hard time narrowing it down sometimes, all the amazing things that we've been able to see what God has done. I think about a village today, I guess, would be, the name of the little community was Nueva San Martin, deep in the Peruvian village. We had been doing teams all across that area for a few years. But this time we had to walk in about 6 hours. We camped in one village and then walked a couple hours more to get to Nueva San Martin. A colleague and I were leading a medical team into that village, and it was just such a unique place. The indigenous and far-reach places all have their own little communities, and they're all a little bit different. And so I remember walking into that village for the first time. And while I had experienced this before, it was overwhelming the way people reacted to us. They had not seen outsiders like us. They certainly not seen outsiders from a different race. And so the uniqueness of it was the timidity of the people of, we're there for this, in this case, a kind of a brief visit, but they were longing for, the medical team that was coming, expecting them, wanting us to be there. But when we arrived, the shock on their face is one that I remember in that particular community.
Was it almost like they weren't really expecting you to actually make it, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think the thought of it was there, but when we actually showed up and we looked different, I mean, we were giants compared to them.
Wow.
Dressed and, you know, modern clothes, and they were still very, very indigenous and very, dressed with paint on their faces and indigenous dress and, you know, with a worldview much different than ours. And then here we are actually there. Who would come?
Yeah.
It was a shock on their face.
And it was a 6-hour hike, you said?
It was a 6-hour hike to a community. We spent the night and then another 2 hours in.
Another 2 hours in.
Mhm.
Wow. Reminds me of, you know, further in,
Yeah,
further up.
just a little bit further.
Just a little bit further.
Yeah.
Wow. What from that village experience, in that medical clinic, like what stood out to you as something God did?
Oh, well, first of all, you know, every clinic that we do, in those days with, one of our staff members here, but also we had, Peruvian doctors with us.
Mm.
You know, the goal, certainly, it's not that it's not the goal, but certainly is to treat people medically, but the goal is the gospel. And so
Yeah.
just sharing the gospel, you know, there was, I speak Spanish and we have translators there to speak Spanish, but they were speaking their own language. And so we had to have other translators. And so there were times when I was working the pharmacy and, you know, I'm trying to give medicine instructions and, I was translating from English to Spanish. And then there was another person there translating from Spanish to their language. And that's a unique, challenge, but it's also kind of like, it's really neat. It's just neat. But also sharing the gospel, to a place that, really have little to no exposure to the gospel. It was just incredible. And we watched God open, the kind of the spiritual eyes to people, to the realities of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
So some people may be listening and saying, you know, that's great. I love that. But why really go? And I think it's what you're saying is that there's a deeper purpose. And so tell me a little bit about that, not just from kind of go perspective, but from your own perspective of what drives us to go visit villages that no one visits. Like, what is the heartbeat behind that?
Well, the thought that comes to mind is a quote that kind of one of my mentors would tell me is, all the easy places are taken. Obviously we're driven by the gospel. It's the why, and we do everything we do. You know, yes, we may be doing some humanitarian relief somewhere, but the reason is for the sake of the gospel.
Yeah.
And, all the easy places are taken. Why I've gotten this reputation to go to the hard places is because I'm going to put it in my rural Kentucky terms. You got to go where the fish are biting.
Yeah.
And we want to go.
That's good.
I want to be as useful for the kingdom as I can. And I'm not speaking, I would never criticize what God is using someone else to do. But for me, it's always been, I want to go where nobody else is going.
Yeah.
So that I could reach the people that nobody else is going to.
Yeah. That's good. I wonder if we could, dig into another story maybe, because I know you've got a lot of them. Kind of take us into a moment or a person that really impacted you, in a village, you know. I've heard some of them. I know you've got some more, but, maybe for our listeners, paint a picture of an individual or a moment that really just, encapsulates that going to that hard place and seeing God do what only God can do.
So it's really hard for me to narrow that down, honestly. I've got two stories that probably come to mind. I'll share the first one because it's probably to the hardest place. We were, deep in a jungle, coincidentally in Peru again, and, a jungle village, myself, a couple Peruvian doctors. We had a team of people, dentists, and, we had hiked several hours to get to this village. And we were there with this clinic, and this if you've ever been a part of these clinics, a lot of people come, and there's sometimes long lines of people waiting to see the doctors and get the care. And we're in there waiting is when we're ministering or we're teaching hygiene or something like that. But it's coming kind of towards the end of the day. And, there was a child that we later learned the father had carried this child from 4 hours deeper in the jungle. So we had hiked 7 hours in, six hours in, something like that. And the father had come 4 hours from even deeper to get to the village, and this child couldn't walk. And, again, I'm kind of managing the clinic and helping just direct people. And I noticed he's with the doctor, and one of our Peruvian doctors calls me over and said, "There's nothing I can do for this girl." The father, who doesn't speak Spanish, we have one of those double translation things happening again. Can't. He's insistent that we treat his daughter, and there's nothing I can do. She's unable to walk, and I think you just need to pray. And, that's a challenge, because we want to offer hope to people. And here this father has got this desperate situation.
Right.
And so, I'm bold enough that we're just going to believe God to do something. And so a few of us gather around and we pray for this young child, and we pray. And, the doctor asked the father to walk 3 or 4 steps away from him. And we pray, and he does a reflex test on the child, and there's reflex there where there wasn't before.
Wow.
And so we pray again, and we were like, wow, God's doing something here. And the doctor, puts the child down, and the child walks to the dad. Incredible.
Wow. Yeah.
Miraculous. And we were standing there just giving God all the praise. But the image that's burned in my mind is not of that. It's that later, an hour later, when we're packing up our stuff, is watching that dad, who I now knew had carried that child there 4 hours, walking out of the village, holding his daughter's hand.
Wow.
And she's walking.
Yeah.
And the thought I've always had about that story is, what happened when they got back home?
Right.
To a place. I mean, we were talking about hard places.
Right.
I couldn't eat. There's no way I could have gone 4 more hours. I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Our team was exhausted, and we were to the end of ourselves. But God went a little further.
Yeah. Right.
This young lady, this child was healed, and she's walking back to that village. What did I want to, when we get to heaven, I want to ask, what happened?
What happened to that village when they saw that little girl walk back in?
Right. We couldn't go there to share the gospel. There's no way.
Yeah.
And they didn't speak our language. All we could tell that father was, we're going to talk to the Creator on your behalf. And she was carried out, but she walked back home.
Yeah.
And so
amazing.
He heard the gospel that day, and his daughter was healed, and he went back to a village that us nor our partners could ever be.
Yeah. Wow, that reminds me of a story in the New Testament.
Yeah.
Of walking back and telling all that God had done.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how the kingdom expands like that. Well, so you've said a few things throughout. You've mentioned Peruvian doctors, medical clinics, double translations. So a lot of that is just, there are people on the ground besides us.
Oh, yeah.
And they're working alongside us. And so one of the things I want to do just for the listener here is kind of demystify the process and say, like, how do we actually get to these places? Who opens the doors, from logistics here to logistics there? Just that communication piece. I know there's a lot of work that is involved in that. So maybe just walk us through a little bit of logistics on both ends, and then how important it is to have those local people on the ground.
Quarter National wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the local people. We our partners around the world are incredible. Whether it's in Peru or Georgia or somewhere else in the Middle East, the folks that we work with are just incredible. And, you know, people said, well, how did you find that place? Well, I didn't find that place. Our partners did. One of the kind of the unfortunate, I guess, I don't know if that's the right word or not, but the thing that concerns me sometimes is people here look at us here at Go that are on staff and look at us as some sort of faith hero. When the reality for me is the heroes of the faith in this ministry are the people on the ground. The partners around the world that make it happen. And so we have from the ministry partners to the logistic partners, we have incredible folks that come alongside us. So, you know, I was just this morning making some arrangements for a team that's upcoming, and I talked to 3 different folks that are on the ground that are supporting our ministry, whether it's transportation to and from airports or housing, making sure we're getting clean, safe food, making sure we got the right boat to ride down some river somewhere,
right?
Or the motorcycles are going to be there to meet us when we're on our way out. All of that happens because of incredible partners and incredible people doing incredible things. And I want to be clear here. It's not they love us and respect us and work with us because they believe in the ministry, but for them, it's about the gospel as well.
Yeah.
And it's about the ministry of what's happening for their people. They view this as it's funny because oftentimes we kind of mistakenly view them as some sort of other employee, and they don't view themselves as that.
Right.
They view themselves as a part of the team here to reach people for the gospel.
I mean, one of my fondest memories was traveling down the river with you to Ricardo Palma, this tiny little village on the edge of the Huallaga River. Yeah. And it wasn't just us. There were 15 Peruvians that were with us. They were on their own mission trip. Yeah. They had come from their own church. They were encouraging one of the translators encouraged me before we even left with the scripture out of Nehemiah, you know, of what I should be praying when I'm in this village. So I love that. It's the global church at work with each other to expand the kingdom. And that's what I love to be a part of with Go. And I think that's how we get into remote places. It's the only way we get in there.
It's the only way. And it's hard. We forget that sometimes it's hard for them too. Yeah. When we take someone from the city of Lima,
to the jungle,
to the jungle, it's just as hard for them as it is for us.
Yeah.
But their love for the gospel is as much as our love is for the gospel. And, you know, whether it's Adon there in Tarapoto going down the river, his love for the people down the river is the reason why we're there. His love for the gospel, for those people to come to know Christ, is the reason why we're there. And he's essential.
I mean, I remember traveling down that, just the whole idea that no one had gone that far before, and we were going one more village down.
One more village.
And it's one more village.
If you remember on that trip, we kind of, he used a word and we kind of latched onto that word because he said in a Spanish, but he used kind of the word, this military word for beachfront.
Yeah, that's right. Beachhead.
Beachhead, yes.
Yep. It was a beachhead for the gospel.
He's like, if we can reach this village, it's going to reach so many more.
So many more villages, yeah. And so I think that's really important for the listeners to understand too, is that there's strategy involved in this. It's like people are praying, they're asking God, how do we go further? How do we go farther in, deeper in? And I love that we're not alone. We have a network of supporters and partners, and ultimately the Lord is leading the way.
I just want to say, a lot of times, you know, people will come on a mission trip like to the hard place for the adventure of going. And I'm not criticizing that, but that's the reason that motivated them to go.
Right.
But when they went, God did something powerful in their lives to open their worldview for the need for the gospel in hard places. So what I find is people will say, yeah, I'm going to go on that trip. Their original motivation is for some great adventure, but they keep coming back because their eyes are open for the need for the gospel in difficult places, even deeper.
Right.
And so we have people that travel with me quite frequently that just keep coming back, not for the great adventure of what we do, but for the gospel. And so the first trip may have been for the adventure,
right?
But they keep coming back because they realize the need for the gospel there.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't like a good adventure?
Right.
But when you add purpose, eternal value, eternal return, that makes that adventure so much more meaningful, I think, to people.
And they're willing to, I don't want to say we're cavalier here, but they're willing to take the risk to go to the hard places when they realize the need for the gospel there.
Yeah. Well, talk to me about that, because some people may be listening and say, this sounds awesome. I mean, I love that, but I could never do that. It just seems too risky. So what are some of the risks? What are some of the ways that we mitigate those risks? And then maybe what are some ways that it's worth it?
I want to answer the last part first. The last part is worth it because your real risk you're going to take is God's going to change your life. And
Amen.
he's going to make you different because you went to the hard places.
Right.
And that's the amazing thing about it. I think though the logistics is we do really well here of mitigating those risks. And first of all, the best risk prevention you can have is preparation.
Yeah.
And, I work and our team here works really hard to make sure our folks are prepared to go to these places. And that happens not just with the people here, but with the logistics on the ground, making sure the boat is there, it's safe, that it's able to do what it's supposed to do, the transportation. And then that's not to say that, things don't happen, but
sure.
But we're going to take everything. We're going to make safety our number one priority and doing that. But also, it's because our partners work really hard. You were on that trip where we had 15 or 16 other people. We had a whole team of cooks coming with us because we wanted to make sure that the people preparing our food while we were there was doing it safely.
Right. No river water. We did not drink river water. So that was all.
I'm not sure I'm willing to say that, but we did our best to make sure we did.
Best not to. Right. Right.
Yeah. That's so there's risk. Listen, there's risk. If you go across the street, I mean, we're here in Wilmore, there's risk for us to go to Lexington.
Yeah.
There's risk everywhere.
Right.
Certainly there's risk when you travel internationally, and certainly the risk increase as you go along, but the gospel's worth that.
That's right.
And the Bible said that he would send us out like sheep among wolves. Now listen, I'm not one that spent my mission career and going to the war zones. There's much more powerful missionaries out there doing amazing things in war zones and things like that. I don't want to compare what I've done to that, but we've taken risk and those risks, we've done our best to do that safely, wisely, but also understanding the need for the gospel is sometimes bigger than anything else.
And I think, honestly, that having local partners on the ground,
it's the key to everything.
Is so important because they also are risk.
We trust our partners.
They can tell you.
And I go back to the trip you and I were on there. We were concerned about the river rising, if you remember, on that trip. And so I was spending, we're getting about halfway through the trip, and I was talking to our partner about, hey, what do we need to do here to make sure we can get back? Is there anything we need? So we're constantly working ahead. We kind of have this unsaid, unwritten rule here that we're going to work 24 to 48 hours ahead of the team at all time to make sure they're safe and everything's happening the way it's supposed to. But all of that happens because of partnership and the people on the ground. So
that's right. That's good. Well, just kind of a moment of vulnerability here. Yeah, I mean, you've got lots of stories. You spent years doing this. How has it changed you? Like, what does that look like?
That's a hard question to say briefly.
Take as much time as you need.
I went on my first mission trip because my very first trip because a bunch of friends were going. But my first real trip as an adult, I was just kind of checking the Christian to-do list.
Yeah.
Is the way I like to say it. Okay, Christians are kind of supposed to go on this mission trip, so I'm going to do that. Check the box. And we ended up going to a difficult place. And I'm from rural Kentucky. I've seen poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, sometimes the people will say, well, we don't have poverty like that here in the United States. And I'm like, well, come go with me and I'll take you to places that we do have extreme poverty here sometimes. But that's not what rocked me. What rocked me was the hunger and the need for the gospel. As a young person, when I went on that trip, how going to that hard place changed me is I was just overwhelmed that somebody's got the gospel has to be here and somebody's got to go. Mm-hmm. And that can't, it was like, I can't make that somebody else. It's got to be me.
Yeah. And
so, my life changed. I went from someone who came back who on that first trip, when I was just checking the first trip as an adult, I was just checking the box to say, doing the Christian to-do list. I had said after the trip when I was a teenager that I would never leave the United States again. I said, going to this one, I'm going to go this one, check the Christian to-do list. And then I can say, hey, as a young minister, you need to go. And then I'll never have to do this again. That's what I was saying. Mm-hmm. I was in that jungle place. Unfortunately, I got sick on that trip, but I was in that jungle place, sick, thinking and praying, God, if you'll get me out of here, I'm never coming back.
Yeah.
But then I got rocked and God hit me in the face with the need for the gospel around the world and people's need for us. I felt God say to me very clearly, when I asked God in a moment of vulnerability, a moment through my own tears, said, God, how can you allow all of this, not only the poverty, but the godlessness and the absence of the gospel so freely that we have here? How do you allow that to happen? And theologians may argue this statement, but I felt God say to me, I didn't allow this to happen. I told my people to go. Yeah. I need you to go.
Wow.
And that moment changed my life. And that's why I am who I am today, is because of that. I just was smacked in the face with the need of the gospel around the world.
So it's very likely somebody could be listening and they're feeling maybe a nudge, or they're just, God's working on them. What would you say to somebody like that who, they hear this, they understand a little bit about how God calls people? What would you say to them?
I don't want to oversimplify it, but just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. When you take the step. When you feel that nudge from the Lord, I have found in my life that if you'll just step out and go do it, that He's going to meet you there. Now, listen, let's just be honest. That's not easy to do. There's things that are going to happen that aren't going to go the way you thought they were going to go. Mm-hmm. But if you'll just do it, the great adventure isn't going to places and rafting down a river. The great adventure is stepping into the will of God to go to the places and do the things He's called you to do, and having to trust Him that He's going to do all the logistics. He's going to provide.
That's right.
He's going to keep you safe. He's going to take care of the things that the unknowns.
Yeah.
That's the great adventure.
Yeah.
Just stepping into His will in your life. So, the gospel of Nike, just go do it. Just do it.
Right. My wife and I were just talking recently about the awareness that you have on a mission trip. You're just aware of God, and some of it's because you're in a completely different environment than you've ever been in. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of forces this hypersensitivity to the Lord. Like, and there's no way I can do what I need to do without him.
You've heard the term reckless abandonment.
Yeah.
I call this a purposeful abandonment.
Right. That's good.
So you're abandoning all the distractions, all the other things, and you're just focusing on what God's calling you to do.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said earlier, that God, he will change your life through this. That was a nice way of saying it. But in a lot of ways, people get wrecked. Their worldviews get messed up. And then
I can't tell you how many people that have been on a trip that are, been in a hard place where you're at the end of yourself. You've ate strange food all week. You've bathed in a river, or we've taken bucket brigade baths or whatever it is we're doing. Not that all the trips are that way, by the way, but, and you're just uncomfortable. You're at the end of yourself. It's in that moment, though, that God speaks the clearest, it seems.
Yeah.
When you're at the end of yourself and you're, we have a little inside joke. I'm not going to, someone said, my mama told me not to come on this trip. Someone said that to me one time through their tears. But God took that person and made them into an incredible servant of the Lord to be used, not just on that trip, but now many other places. So it's incredible.
Amazing. Well, Larry, thank you. We could spend a lot more time talking about stories, but thank you for being a guest on the Edge of the Map podcast. I really appreciate your season, your wisdom in doing this, and you really help go. You help shepherd people into this kind of radical obedience, radical saying yes to God. And so there are still villages no one visits, not because they're impossible to reach, but because too few people have said yes. And maybe that's the tension this leaves us with, is that maybe some of you listening, this isn't just a story, it is a nudge. You may never find yourself hiking into a remote village, but you do have a place in this story. And some are called to go, some are called to send, and some are called to help build the kind of work that makes this possible. But no one is really meant to sit this out. And so if this conversation that we've had today has nudged or stirred something in you, pay attention to it. That's what we ask. Reach out to a pastor, a friend, reach out to us. We're happy to process this with you. But I think that the fact that we're not meant to sit this one out is just God's way of saying, look, I have a plan for the gospel to go around the world, and I want you to be a part of it. And so whatever that looks like, we're going to stand with you to fulfill that, to help you fulfill that. So there are still places waiting, still people unseen, still doors that have not been knocked on. And the only thing that changes that is someone willing to say yes to God. This is the end of our episode this week. Thanks again, Larry. I'm Curtis Elliott, your host with Go International. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for being with us for Edge of the Map. Every conversation this season comes from the edges, from hard places, close countries, and communities where following Jesus can come with a real cost. And while the contexts are different, the questions are often the same. What does faithful ministry actually look like? How do you stay when the work is slow? And what kind of church is formed under pressure? We're grateful for the leaders and workers willing to share these stories honestly. To learn more about Go International and the work happening in unreached places around the world, visit gointernational.org. There, you can give, go, and grow the movement. Thanks for listening.